Ma'am, I'm not going to ask you again. You need to leave. Now. The words sliced through the fluorescent hum of the parking garage like a blade through silk. DeShawn Rivers heard them from 20 feet away, echoing off concrete that still held the day's Miami heat even at midnight. He'd been making his final rounds, keys jangling against his hip, counting down the last 11 minutes of a shift that had already stretched 13 hours long. But those words stopped him cold. If this story stayed with you, it's because you're the kind of person who still believes compassion matters. Subscribe to Kindness Spoke TV. These stories are for people who haven't given up on humanity. He turned the corner and saw them. Two figures standing over a third. The woman on the ground had pressed herself against the garage wall like she was trying to disappear into it. A threadbare blanket was pulled tight around her shoulders. Her hair hung in matted clumps. A garbage bag beside her held everything she owned. Brett Sullivan stood over her, arms crossed, his hospital administrator badge catching the light. Beside him, Tiffany Morrison had her phone out, already typing with manicured nails that clicked against the screen like tiny hammers. "I wasn't sleeping," the woman said, and her voice cracked on the last word. "I was just resting, please. I'm sorry." "Third night, lady?" Brett's voice carried that specific kind of tired annoyance DeShawn had heard 1,000 times before, the sound of someone who'd already made up their mind that you didn't matter. "We've had complaints. You're trespassing on private property." "I'll leave in the morning," she whispered. It's cold out there tonight, and I don't have anywhere." "Not our problem." Tiffany didn't even look up from her phone. "This is a hospital, not a homeless shelter. There's a difference." The woman flinched like she'd been slapped. DeShawn's chest tightened. He'd seen this before. Hell, he'd been this before. Different city, different garage, same desperate mathematics of trying to find somewhere safe to close your eyes when you had nothing and nowhere. He took 3 steps closer. His boots echoed in the concrete cave of Level 3, Parking Structure B, Jackson Memorial Hospital. The place where he'd worked security for 3 years without a single write-up. The place where his badge said he was supposed to enforce exactly the kind of policy Brett and Tiffany were quoting right now. "How long have you been out here?" DeShawn asked quietly. The woman's head snapped up. Her eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with exhaustion that went deeper than one sleepless night. She looked like somebody's mother. She looked like his mother had 6 years ago, before the cancer finally won. 3 days, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe 4. I lost count." Brett turned to DeShawn with visible relief. "Perfect timing, Rivers. We need her removed and a trespass report filed. Standard protocol." Tiffany finally looked up from her phone, her smile sharp as glass. "Make sure she understands she can't come back. We don't need people like this bringing down property values. Donors don't want to see this when they visit. People like this." The words hung in the air like smoke. DeShawn looked at the woman again, really looked. The trembling hands clutching that thin blanket, the way her shoulders hunched as if she was trying to make herself smaller, less visible, less of a problem. The desperate hope flickering in her eyes when she met his gaze, like maybe, he might be different. By morning, that hope would put DeShawn on the wrong side of his own life. And just like that, standing in a parking garage that smelled like exhaust and old coffee, DeShawn Rivers knew exactly what kind of choice he was about to make. The kind that could cost him his job. DeShawn moved closer, his shadow falling across the woman and the 2 administrators who'd already written her off. He crouched down slowly, the way you would approach something wounded and scared. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, eyes darting between him and the others. "Carmen," she finally said. "Carmen Vasquez." "Miss Carmen," DeShawn kept his voice low. "When's the last time you ate something?" Her face crumpled before she caught herself. "Yesterday, I think. There was half a sandwich someone left at the bus stop on Flagler." Brett made an impatient sound. "Jesus Christ, DeShawn! We don't have time for the full intake interview. Just get her out of here." "I'm talking to her," DeShawn said, without looking at Brett. "Give me a minute." "We've given you a minute." Tiffany's voice climbed an octave. "This is business. Hospital policy is crystal clear. No loitering, no unauthorized persons in parking structures. She needs to go." DeShawn straightened up, turning to face them. She's not hurting anyone. She's hurting our image, Tiffany shot back. What if a board member drives through here? What if our donors see a homeless woman camped out in our garage? We're a hospital, DeShawn said quietly. Aren't we supposed to help people who are hurting? Brett stepped forward, his professional smile stretched thin. Don't get emotional on us, Rivers. This isn't about helping. This is about property rights and following the rules. Rules that you, as security, are paid to enforce. I know the rules, DeShawn said. Good. Then you know you can't just. Brett stopped as DeShawn pulled out his phone. What are you doing? DeShawn ignored him. There's a motel about 4 blocks from here. Sunshine Inn, over on Northwest 12th. You know it? Carmen nodded slowly. I walked past it this morning. How much do they charge for a night? $59, she said immediately. Plus tax, $64 total. I checked. I have $17. DeShawn opened his banking app. The screen showed $183.47. Everything between him and Caleb and the street. Payday wasn't until Friday. He thought about the eviction notice in his glove compartment. 21 days, $2,400 in back rent. He thought about Caleb's left shoe, the sole separating from the leather. New shoes were $40. He'd been saving for 2 weeks. And then he thought about his mother. 6 years ago, sitting in her car in a hospital parking lot because she couldn't afford a motel near her treatments. The stranger who'd paid for a week at a motel, no name, just a note. Someone helped me once when I had nothing. Now it's your turn to help someone else. His mother had kept that note until the day she died. DeShawn, no, Brett's voice cut through the memory. Don't even think about it. Security Personnel Manual, Section 12. Staff are prohibited from providing financial assistance to individuals on hospital property. DeShawn finished. I memorized it when I got hired. So, if you do this, I'm reporting it to Torres, and you know what happens then. Tiffany's fingers flew across her phone screen. I'm documenting everything. Timestamp, location, witnesses. If you hand her money, Rivers, you're done. Fired. DeShawn didn't know it yet, but this decision would put him face to face with her again under very different circumstances. DeShawn looked at Carmen, who'd pulled the blanket tighter, like she could disappear. Then, knowing exactly what it would cost him, DeShawn reached for his wallet. DeShawn pulled out 3 20s and a 5. His hands were steady even though his heart hammered against his ribs. $65. Caleb's shoes. Half the electric bill. 2 days of groceries. Or 1 night in a room with a door that locked and a bed that was warm. You're not serious, Brett said, voice gone quiet with disbelief. DeShawn held the bills out to Carmen. Consider the deposit covered. The Sunshine Inn is 4 blocks north. Ask for a room on the 2nd floor. They're quieter. Carmen stared at the money like it might vanish. I can't. Why would you? Because someone did it for my mother once, he said simply. And because you deserve better than concrete and fear. Her hand shook as she took the bills. Tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting clean tracks through the grime. What's your full name? DeShawn Rivers. She repeated it slowly, carefully, like she was committing it to memory. DeShawn Rivers. I'll pay you back tomorrow. I swear on my life. Just help someone else when you can, he said. That's all I ask. Brett laughed, sharp and bitter. You just threw away $65 on a scam. She probably has an apartment. They all do. Tiffany held up her phone triumphantly. All documented. Torres is going to fire you, DeShawn. Don't say we didn't warn you. Carmen gathered her garbage bag slowly, joints creaking. Before she left, she looked at DeShawn with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Not threatening, just focused. Like she was taking a photograph with her mind. Then she walked toward the exit, footsteps echoing in the concrete cave. The garage fell silent, except for the fluorescent buzz. Supervisor hearing tomorrow, Brett called after DeShawn. Bring your badge and uniform shirt. You know what that means. DeShawn knew exactly what it meant. He walked to his car, a 2008 Honda Civic with 187,000 miles and a check engine light that had been on for 8 months. He sat in the driver's seat with the door open, heat rising from concrete in waves. His phone, $118.47. 3 weeks until eviction. 17 days until payday. One son waiting at home who believed his father could fix anything. DeShawn started the engine. He didn't know that in 14 hours, he'd be sitting in a conference room facing the woman he'd just helped. He didn't know she'd be wearing a tailored suit instead of a threadbare blanket. He didn't know his entire life was about to shift on an axis he couldn't see yet. All he knew was that he'd made a choice his mother would have been proud of, even if it cost him everything. The drive home took 23 minutes through empty Miami streets, slick with humidity. His studio apartment sat on the 3rd floor of a building in Liberty City that always smelled like someone else's cooking tonight. It was arroz con pollo from the Rodriguez family downstairs. DeShawn climbed the stairs slowly, legs heavy with exhaustion. The lock stuck for a second before giving way. Inside, Mrs. Yolanda Dominguez sat in his only chair, her reading glasses perched on her nose, watching Caleb sleep on the pull-out couch. "Long night?" she whispered in her thick Cuban accent. "Long life," DeShawn said, pulling out 2 20s from his remaining cash. "Thank you, Mrs. Dominguez." She took the money reluctantly. "Caleb asked about you 4 times. I told him you were helping people. He drew you another picture." She pointed to the refrigerator. DeShawn looked. A tall building with dozens of windows, all glowing yellow. In front, 2 stick figures held hands, one tall, one small. In crayon letters, "Our someday house." He wished he could believe that. After she left, DeShawn stood in the doorway watching Caleb sleep. 7 years old, skin the same deep brown as his own. Curls pressed flat on one side from the pillow. One foot sticking out from the blanket, wearing the shoe with the separating sole. He whispered to the sleeping boy, "I hope I didn't just mess everything up for us." Caleb didn't answer, just breathed slow and even, trusting his father completely. DeShawn closed his eyes. Sometimes that trust felt like the heaviest thing in the world. By morning, DeShawn Rivers would be standing in front of Carmen Vasquez, only this time she wouldn't be the one asking for mercy. DeShawn didn't sleep. He sat at the tiny folding table that served as desk, dining room, and Caleb's art station, staring at his laptop screen. The warehouse shift started at 6 a.m., 4 hours from now. He'd been pulling doubles for 8 months. Hospital security midnight to 8. Warehouse forklift 8:30 to 3. 18 hours gone. 4 hours for sleep if he was lucky. 2 hours with Caleb before the night shift started again. The math never worked. It was always deficit spending with time, with money, with his body. He opened his banking app again. $118.47. Rent was due in 6 days. The eviction notice sat in the drawer beside him, folded into a tight square. Notice to vacate. You have 21 days to pay the sum of $2,400 in back rent or vacate the premises. DeShawn pulled up his budget spreadsheet, the one he updated every night, moving numbers around like chess pieces, trying to find a combination that didn't end in checkmate. Warehouse job, $15 divided by hour, 32 hours divided by week, equals $480 after taxes, $410. Hospital security, $17 divided by hour, 40 hours divided by week, equals $680 after taxes, $590. Monthly take home, roughly $4,000. The numbers never worked. 2 jobs. 18-hour days. Rent alone ate more than half his income. After childcare, gas, and food, there was nothing left. Total monthly expenses, $2,505. The spreadsheet didn't account for things breaking. It didn't account for Caleb growing out of shoes every 4 months. It didn't account for the check engine light or the asthma inhaler that cost $85. It definitely didn't account for falling 3 months behind on rent because Caleb got pneumonia and missed 2 weeks of school. He closed the laptop before the spiral pulled him under. Across the room, Caleb's drawing stared at him from the refrigerator. Our someday house. Windows full of light, a yard, space, safety. DeShawn had grown up in a house like that before his father left and his mother got sick and everything good collapsed. He remembered what it felt like to have your own room, to not hear neighbors' arguments through paper-thin walls, to open the refrigerator and see it full. He wanted that for Caleb more than he wanted air. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Vincent Torres, security supervisor. My office, 2 p.m. tomorrow. Bring your badge and uniform shirt. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, subscribe to Kindness Spoke TV. There it was. Official. DeShawn typed back, understood. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, no response. He looked at Caleb again. The boy had kicked off his blanket, sprawled like a starfish across the pull-out couch. His mouth was open slightly, a thin line of drool on the pillow. DeShawn stood, walked over, gently covered him again. Caleb stirred but didn't wake. I'm trying, little man, DeShawn whispered. I'm trying so hard. He thought about Carmen Vasquez, probably checking into the Sunshine Inn right now, probably crying with relief at having a real bed, probably thinking DeShawn was some kind of angel. He wasn't an angel. He was just a man who couldn't watch someone suffer when he had the power to stop it, even for one night. His mother used to say, character is what you do when nobody's watching and it costs you something. Well, somebody had been watching, and it was definitely going to cost him. DeShawn set his alarm for 5:15 a.m. He lay down on the air mattress beside Caleb's couch. A spring poked through the left side. He'd gotten used to it. As he closed his eyes, he did the math one more time. Warehouse job alone, $1,640 per month. Rent alone, $1,100. That left $540 for everything else. It wasn't enough. That little boy 3 feet away trusted him completely. His last thought before exhaustion pulled him under. Tomorrow didn't care how hard he tried. The alarm screamed at 5:15 a.m. DeShawn's hand shot out, silencing it before it woke Caleb. 3 hours and 42 minutes of sleep. His body felt like someone had beaten it with a pipe. He moved through the apartment like a ghost shower. Instant coffee, uniform for the warehouse. Caleb didn't stir. DeShawn kissed his forehead, left a note on the table. Mrs. D will get you to school. Love you. Be good. Dad. The warehouse was a 40-minute drive through Miami's pre-dawn darkness. Medical supply, distribution, endless rows of boxes that needed moving from trucks to shelves to trucks again. His supervisor, a white guy named Rick, who always smelled like energy drinks, nodded at him. You look like hell, Rivers. Feel like it too. Well, wake up. We got 3 trucks to unload by noon. DeShawn climbed onto the forklift. The repetitive work usually gave him space to think, but today his mind wouldn't settle. It kept circling back to the garage, to Carmen's face, to Brett's smug prediction, to Tiffany's phone documenting everything. His phone buzzed in his pocket around 7:30. He ignored it. Buzzed again at 7:45 and 8 and 8:15. During his 10-minute break, he finally checked. 4 texts, all from Vincent Torres. 7:30 a.m. Meeting moved up. Need you here by 1 p.m. 7:45 a.m. This is not optional, Rivers. 8 a.m. Brett Sullivan and Tiffany Morrison have filed formal complaints. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just come in. DeShawn's stomach dropped into his boots. He typed back, I'll be there. His coworker, a Honduran guy named Javier, leaned against the concrete wall beside him. Bad news. Might be losing my other job. The hospital one? That's the good one, man. Better pay. I know. What'd you do? DeShawn hesitated. Helped somebody I wasn't supposed to help. Javier studied him for a long moment. My abuela says God keeps score different than bosses do. Your abuela hiring? DeShawn tried to smile. It felt like his face might crack. Nah, man, but she lights candles. Want me to ask her to light one for you? Can't hurt. The rest of the shift crawled. Every minute felt like 10. DeShawn kept checking his phone like the messages might change, like Torres might text and say, "Never mind, false alarm, everything's fine." That text never came. At 12:45 p.m., he clocked out. Rick caught him at the door. "You coming back tomorrow?" "I don't know." Rick nodded slowly. "You're a good worker, Rivers. Don't do too many stupid things. You know, hard enough out here already." "Yeah," DeShawn said. "I know." The drive to Jackson Memorial took 20 minutes. He'd left his security uniform in his car. He changed in the parking lot, using the car door for privacy. His hands shook as he pinned the badge to his chest. DeShawn Rivers, Security Services. He'd been so proud the day they gave him that badge. 3 years ago, Caleb had been 4. His mother had been dead 6 months. He'd needed something solid to stand on. And this job had been the only thing holding his life together. Now, it was probably over. DeShawn checked his reflection in the car window, straightened his collar, took a breath that didn't quite reach his lungs. 1 p.m. Time to face the music. He walked toward the administrative building, each step feeling like he was walking toward the edge of a cliff he couldn't see yet but knew was there, waiting for the life he knew to end. The security desk receptionist, Maria, who always brought him cafe on slow nights, looked up as DeShawn entered. Her smile died instantly. "Conference room 3, she said quietly. "3rd floor." "Not Torres's office?" She shook her head, sympathy flooding her dark eyes. "Conference room means formal. Lo siento, DeShawn." Conference rooms meant witnesses, documentation, HR protocols, the kind of meeting where they had security escort you out after. He took the elevator alone. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered slightly, humming like insects. His reflection in the polished steel doors looked exhausted. 3rd floor, the administrative level. Carpet instead of linoleum. Framed photos of hospital founders on the walls. The smell of expensive coffee instead of disinfectant. Conference room 3 sat at the end of the hallway. Through the frosted glass, he could see shapes moving. Multiple people. His stomach twisted. DeShawn stopped outside the door, hand raised to knock. "Please, God, Caleb needs this job." He knocked. "Come in," Vincent Torres' voice, tight with tension. DeShawn pushed the door open and stepped inside. Then stopped. 5 people sat around the conference table. Vincent Torres sat closest to the door, looking deeply uncomfortable. He wouldn't meet DeShawn's eyes. Brett Sullivan sat across from Torres, arms crossed, expression smug. He looked like someone about to watch an execution he'd personally arranged. Tiffany Morrison sat beside Brett, phone on the table, recording app open, red dot blinking. An older white man in an expensive suit, DeShawn didn't recognize him, sat with a leather portfolio. Had to be HR or legal. And at the head of the table, DeShawn's breath stopped. Carmen Vasquez. Except she wasn't Carmen Vasquez anymore. Wasn't the woman from the garage floor with matted hair and a garbage bag. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than DeShawn's monthly rent. Tailored perfectly. White blouse underneath, crisp and professional. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. Subtle makeup. Designer glasses. A leather portfolio sat in front of her, the hospital's logo embossed on the cover. A nameplate on the table read, Dr. C. Vasquez, Chief Operating Officer. DeShawn's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Her eyes met his. For just a flash, half a second, something warm flickered there. Recognition, maybe gratitude. Then it was gone, replaced by professional composure. "Mr. Rivers," she said, voice completely different from last night. No trembling, no desperation, pure authority. "Please, sit down." DeShawn couldn't move. His brain was shorting out. "Chief Operating Officer." He swallowed hard. "I don't understand." "Sit down, DeShawn," Torres said quietly, almost gently. "Please." DeShawn moved on autopilot, pulling out the chair at the far end of the table. The folder in front of him had his name on it. Rivers, DeShawn, personnel file. Brett leaned back in his chair, smug expression growing. Tiffany checked her phone, making sure it was still recording. Dr. Vasquez folded her hands on the table. Her nails were manicured now. Clean. Perfect. Last night, they'd been dirty, broken, desperate. Let me introduce myself properly, she said, voice carrying the kind of calm that came from absolute power. My name is Dr. Carmen Vasquez. I am the new Chief Operating Officer of Jackson Memorial Hospital. I was appointed by the board 2 weeks ago. DeShawn felt like he was falling even though he was sitting down. Last night, she continued, eyes never leaving his, was my third night conducting what I call ground truth assessments of this facility. Brett's smug expression flickered. Tiffany's hand froze over her phone. I came to Miami from Atlanta, doctor, Vasquez said. The board hired me specifically to reform the culture and operational standards of this hospital. I wanted to see how staff treat people when they think nobody important is watching. She paused. The silence stretched like a wire, pulled too tight. Last night, she said quietly, I was watching everything. She reached for the tablet in front of her, tapped the screen once. The conference room's wall-mounted monitor flickered to life. Security footage, black and white, timestamp, 11:47 p.m., the parking garage. DeShawn's heart stopped. Dr. Vasquez pressed play. The footage played in silence. On screen, Brett Sullivan and Tiffany Morrison stood over the huddled figure of Carmen Vasquez. Her voice came through the speakers, tinny but clear. I wasn't sleeping. I was just resting. Please, I'm sorry. Brett's response, dismissive and cold. Third night, lady. We've had complaints. You're trespassing on private property? Carmen's voice, smaller now. Please, just until morning. It's cold out there tonight, and I don't have anywhere. Tiffany cut her off. Not our problem. This is a hospital, not a homeless shelter. DeShawn watched himself enter the frame, saw himself crouch down, heard his own voice. How long have you been out here? The footage continued. Every word, every moment. Then came the part that made DeShawn's stomach drop. Brett turning to him. Rivers, you're security. Remove her. Or just walk her out, quickly, before any donors see this. And then, crystal clear on the audio, Tiffany's voice dropped lower, meant only for Brett, but the garage acoustics carried it perfectly. We don't need people like this bringing down property values. Donors don't want to see trash when they visit. Brett's laugh, soft and cruel. Just another con artist. They all have the same sob story. Rivers is too soft. Some people can't separate emotion from professionalism. DeShawn heard himself asking Carmen about the motel, watched himself pull out his wallet, saw the exact moment Brett realized what he was doing. The footage showed DeShawn handing over the cash, Carmen's tears, her gratitude, then Tiffany's voice. Of course he's doing this. Some people just can't help themselves. Dr. Vasquez stopped the video. The frozen image showed DeShawn helping Carmen to her feet. The conference room was silent. Dr. Vasquez turned to face Brett and Tiffany. Her expression was calm, glacially calm. Would either of you like to explain your behavior? Brett recovered first, straightening. We were following protocol. Unauthorized persons in secure areas, that's a security issue. We were protecting hospital property. You called a human being trash, Dr. Vasquez said. Each word precise as a scalpel. I didn't, Tiffany started. Audio is timestamped and archived. Dr. Vasquez interrupted. Would you like me to play it again? Tiffany's mouth snapped shut. Brett tried again. With all due respect, we were protecting the hospital's reputation. Our donor base is very particular about image. We can't have what? Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. Can't have visible poverty? Can't have people who are struggling? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Mr. Sullivan? Brett's jaw worked. No answer came. Dr. Vasquez stood, walked around the table slowly, deliberately. Let me be very clear, she said. I sat on that concrete floor for 3 nights. I was cold. I was hungry. I was frightened. Do you know how many staff members walked past me? 63, I counted. DeShawn's breath caught. Do you know how many stopped to help? 4. A janitor named Luis Morales, a nurse named Patricia Williams, an orderly named James Chen, and Mr. Rivers. Her eyes moved to DeShawn briefly. Do you know how many tried to remove me? 15. You two were the most aggressive. Torres shifted uncomfortably. The man in the expensive suit made a note. Mr. Torres, Dr. Vasquez said, how many complaints have been filed against Mr. Rivers in 3 years? Torres cleared his throat. None, ma'am. How many commendations? 7. From patients and families. And Mr. Sullivan? Miss Morrison? Torres hesitated. Sullivan has 2 complaints for unprofessional conduct. Morrison has 4. Yet they felt qualified to lecture Mr. Rivers about professionalism. Brett's face flushed red. We can't be expected to house every homeless person who... No one asked you to house anyone. Dr. Vasquez cut him off. You were asked to treat a human being with basic dignity. You failed. Tiffany's voice shook. If we'd known who you were... Exactly. Dr. Vasquez's eyes locked onto hers. If you'd known who I was, you would have behaved differently. She walked back to her seat, sat down. That is precisely the culture I was hired to eliminate. She opened her portfolio, pulled out 2 sealed envelopes. Brett and Tiffany stared at them. Dr. Vasquez slid the envelopes across the table. They came to rest directly in front of Brett and Tiffany. Brett reached for the envelope with shaking hands. Tiffany didn't move at all. Brett shot to his feet so fast his chair scraped across the floor. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, Dr. Vasquez said, her voice level as still water. You're firing us for what exactly? Brett's voice climbed. For doing our jobs? For following hospital security protocols? I'm firing you for forgetting what your jobs actually are, doctor. Vasquez said, which is to serve this hospital's mission, compassionate care for all people, regardless of circumstance. Tiffany grabbed her envelope like it might bite her. This is insane. We have rights. We have union protection. You can't just... Your union contract has a conduct clause, Dr. Vasquez interrupted. Section 7, paragraph 3. Employees must demonstrate respect and dignity toward all persons, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, or appearance. You violated it? On camera? With audio. Multiple times. She looked at Torres. Mr. Torres, please call security to escort Mr. Sullivan and Miss Morrison to collect their personal belongings. They have 15 minutes. Torres looked like he might be sick, but he pulled out his phone. Brett's face went from red to purple. This is on you, Rivers. He pointed at DeShawn, finger shaking with rage. You and your goddamn hero complex. Hope that $65 was worth destroying our careers. DeShawn said nothing, just sat there, hands folded on the table. Tiffany stood now too, voice trembling with fury. We were doing what everyone does. We're just the ones who got caught in your little social experiment. You're the ones who called a suffering human being trash, doctor, Vasquez said quietly. You're the ones who laughed about it. You're the ones who treated dignity like it was optional. Everyone thinks it, Tiffany spat. We just said it out loud. Then everyone is wrong, Dr. Vasquez said. But you're the ones I caught, and you're the ones I'm making an example of. A knock at the door. 2 security officers entered both people DeShawn knew, Rodriguez and Thompson. They looked confused, uncomfortable. Escort Mr. Sullivan and Miss Morrison to their offices, Torres said quietly. 15 minutes to collect personal items. Then, out of the building, Brett grabbed his jacket. As he passed DeShawn, he leaned down, voice low and venomous. You just made an enemy, Rivers! I know people. You think you're safe because she likes you? Wait 6 months. I'll still be here in this city, and I'll remember. Mr. Sullivan, Dr. Vasquez's voice cut across the room like a whip. Threatening another employee? Would you like me to add that to your termination report? Brett straightened, walked toward the door. Tiffany followed, but she stopped in the doorway, turned back. You know what the worst part is? We actually believed in this hospital. We worked here for 5 years. 5 years of impossible policies and administrators who change every 18 months. And this is how it ends? Because we didn't bow down to someone pretending to be homeless? You didn't bow down, Dr. Vasquez said. You stepped on. There's a difference. Tiffany's eyes filled with tears, angry tears. I hope you're happy, both of you. Then she was gone. The door closed behind Rodriguez and Thompson. Silence filled the conference room like water filling a sinking ship. DeShawn could hear his own heartbeat, could hear Torres breathing, could hear the hum of the air conditioning and the distant hospital PA system calling for Dr. Chen in radiology. The man in the expensive suit finally spoke. For the record, I'm Richard Pemberton, hospital board chair. His voice was measured. Careful, doctor. Vasquez has full authority to make personnel decisions. Those terminations are final. DeShawn nodded numbly. Dr. Vasquez closed the portfolio in front of her, folded her hands on top of it, looked at DeShawn for a long, quiet moment. Mr. Rivers, she said. Yes, ma'am. You broke hospital policy last night. Are you aware of that? His stomach dropped. Here it came. The other shoe. Yes, ma'am, he said quietly. I am. Security Personnel Manual, Section 12. Staff are prohibited from providing financial assistance to individuals on hospital property. Correct? Correct. You gave me $65. Yes, ma'am. Why? The question hung in the air. DeShawn thought about lying. Thought about making it sound professional, calculated, defensible. Then he thought about his mother. About Caleb. About the drawing on the refrigerator and the eviction notice in the drawer and the choice he'd made because he couldn't not make it. Because I've been where you were, he said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Cold, scared, counting change and knowing it's not enough. My mother, she died 6 years ago, cancer. She used to sleep in her car near the hospital during treatments because she couldn't afford a motel. He swallowed hard. Someone paid for a week for her. A stranger left a note that said, "Someone helped me once. Now it's your turn to help someone else." His eyes burned. He blinked it back. I looked at you last night and I saw my mother. I saw myself. I knew I might lose this job. I knew it was against policy. But I couldn't be the person who walked away when I had the power to help. DeShawn looked directly at Dr. Vasquez. Some things matter more than keeping my job, ma'am. I'd rather be able to look my son in the eye than look at a paycheck and know I earned it by stepping over someone who needed help. Silence. Dr. Vasquez didn't move, didn't blink. Then she nodded slowly. Mr. Torres, she said, how many commendations did you say Mr. Rivers has received? 7, ma'am. Read me one. Torres looked confused but pulled out the file. DeShawn stayed 2 hours past his shift to help me find my missing mother who has dementia. He was patient, kind, and refused to leave until we found her safe. Signed by Elena Martinez. Dr. Vasquez nodded. Another. Torres flipped a page. He talked my son down from a panic attack when no nurses were available. Sat with him for 40 minutes. My son still asks about him. Signed by Patricia Williams, RN. One more. He bought my daughter a stuffed animal from the gift shop when she was scared before surgery, paid for it himself, she still sleeps with it. Signed by Robert Chen. Dr. Vasquez stood, walked around the table, stopped in front of DeShawn. Stand up, please, she said. DeShawn stood. His legs felt like water. She looked up at him. What's your son's name? She asked. Caleb, DeShawn said softly. He's 7. Does he know what you do here? He thinks I protect people, keep them safe. Dr. Vasquez's expression softened. He's right. She turned back toward the table. Now, she said, we need to decide what happens to you. Dr. Vasquez took a quiet breath, then spoke with the kind of clarity that came from absolute certainty. Mr. Rivers, as of today, I would like to offer you a new position. DeShawn's heart stopped. I'm creating a community liaison program, she continued. Someone to bridge the gap between our hospital and the vulnerable populations we serve. Someone to make sure no one falls through the cracks. Someone who sees people, not problems. She paused, letting the words settle. The salary is $52,000 annually, full benefits, day shift only. Your job would be to do exactly what you did last night, find people who need help, and connect them with resources. DeShawn couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was hearing. $52,000, one job, day shift, benefits. The numbers spun through his mind like a slot machine coming up all cherries. His voice cracked. He tried again. Are you serious? Completely serious, Dr. Vasquez said. I don't have a college degree, he managed. Just high school and security certification. I don't know how to run a program or manage people or... Pemberton spoke up from across the table. We're not hiring a degree, Mr. Rivers. We're hiring a human being who knows how to treat other human beings like they matter. Everything else can be taught. DeShawn felt heat behind his eyes. He blinked hard, trying to hold it together. Dr. Vasquez continued. You'll have training, resources, a team to work with, social services, patient advocacy, community outreach. You'll coordinate them. But the heart of this job, the core of it, you already have. She tilted her head slightly. In 3 years, you've received 7 commendations, all of them for the same thing, seeing people when everyone else looked through them. That's not something we can train. That's character. DeShawn's hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against his thighs. I have a son, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm 3 months behind on rent. I have an eviction notice. I've been working 2 jobs just to survive, and I'm still drowning. I gave you that money last night even though I couldn't afford to, even though it might cost me everything. I know, Dr. Vasquez said gently. I watched you make that choice. I watched you sacrifice what you didn't have to give someone you didn't know a single night of safety. She reached into her portfolio again, pulled out 2 envelopes this time. This, she said, holding up the first one, is your official offer letter. Salary, benefits, start date. Monday, if you accept. She set it on the table in front of him. Then she held up the second envelope. And this is something personal. DeShawn took it with trembling fingers. Inside was a check for $65. The memo line read, returned with gratitude. Below it, another check. This one for $2,400. The memo line, Community Liaison Program, Discretionary Fund, First Allocation. DeShawn stared at the numbers. His vision blurred. $2,400. Exactly his back rent. Exactly what he needed to stop the eviction. The $65 is your money back, she said softly. And I've authorized an emergency housing intervention for you. Finance will process it today. Your eviction stops. Use it for people like I was last night. People who need a door that locks and a bed that's warm. DeShawn couldn't hold it back anymore. A single tear slipped down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say yes, Dr. Vasquez said, and say you'll keep being the man your son already thinks you are. DeShawn looked at the checks, at the offer letter, at Dr. Vasquez, who'd transformed from desperate to powerful, but still looked at him with human warmth in her eyes. He thought about Caleb, about the drawing on the refrigerator, about every double shift and every sleepless night and every moment he'd wondered if he was doing enough, being enough, giving enough. He thought about his mother's note, someone helped me once, now it's your turn to help someone else. Yes, he said, voice breaking. Yes, ma'am. I accept. Dr. Vasquez smiled a real smile, warm and genuine. Good, she said. Welcome to your new position, Mr. Rivers. We'll handle the paperwork this week. For now, go home, sleep, tell your son. Finance will walk you through next steps today. You're not doing this alone anymore. Torres stood, extending his hand across the table. Congratulations, DeShawn. Well deserved. They shook hands. Pemberton nodded approvingly. We'll be watching this program closely. I have a feeling it's going to change how this hospital operates. DeShawn gathered the envelopes with careful hands, like they might disappear if he wasn't gentle enough. As he stood to leave, Dr. Vasquez spoke once more. Mr. Rivers? He turned back. Thank you, she said quietly, for last night, for reminding me why I do this work. DeShawn's throat was too tight to speak. He just nodded. Then he walked out of conference room 3 with his heart pounding harder than when he'd entered. But this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from hope. DeShawn didn't make it all the way to his car before his knees started shaking. He sat behind the wheel with the door still open, Miami heat pouring in, his shirt sticking to his back. The envelopes rested on his lap like something fragile. He opened them again and again. The offer letter, the $65, the check for $2,400. He read the numbers slowly, like they might disappear if he rushed. His phone buzzed in his hand as he opened his banking app. He took photos of the checks. The screen loaded. Deposit submitted. Funds pending. Availability 1-2 business days. He exhaled. Not relief. Not yet. But for the first time in months, the ground didn't feel like it was giving way beneath him. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against the steering wheel. His chest tightened, then broke. He cried quietly at first, then harder. For the nights, he'd sat in the dark because electricity cost too much. For the eviction notice folded in his drawer. For the way Caleb had stopped asking for things because he'd learned not to. He cried because last night he'd made a choice that should have ruined him. And somehow, it hadn't. After a while, he wiped his face with his sleeve, sat up, took a breath, one thing at a time. The warehouse was 12 minutes away. Rick was in the break room when DeShawn found him. You're back early, Rick said. Thought that meeting was gonna drag. It did, DeShawn said. Rick, I'm giving notice. Today's my last day. Rick frowned. They fire you? No, DeShawn said. They moved me. Better job. Day shift. Rick stared at him, then smiled, slow and real. About damn time. You were killing yourself here. They shook hands. You ever need a reference? Rick said. You got one. By mid-afternoon, DeShawn cleared his locker, turned in his badge, walked out for the last time. One job left. And for the first time, it might actually be enough. He picked up Caleb at 4 p.m. Daddy, Caleb shouted when he saw him. You're early. Yeah, DeShawn said, lifting him. Special day. They drove to the bank first. DeShawn went inside, checks in hand. The teller examined them carefully, typed, paused. These will clear by tomorrow or the next business day, she said. But they're good. DeShawn nodded. That was enough. On the way home, Caleb pressed his face to the window when they passed a shoe store. Daddy, he said quietly, those ones light up. DeShawn hesitated. Old fear rose up automatically. Then he nodded. All right, one pair. Inside the store, Caleb chose carefully. At the register, the total flashed. $87.43. DeShawn's thumb hovered over his card. Then he swiped. It went through. His chest loosened just a little. At the grocery store, he kept it simple. Rice, beans, chicken, vegetables, ice cream, one small tub. At home, Caleb ran around in his new shoes, lights blinking with every step. Look, Daddy! I see you, DeShawn said, and he meant more than the shoes. He called the landlord next. If this is about an extension, the man started. It's about payment, DeShawn said. I'll have the full amount in 2 days. The checks are processing. Silence. Call me when it clears, the landlord said finally. I'll hold off. It wasn't perfect, but it was breathing room. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, DeShawn sat at the small table with his laptop. Community outreach, shelter programs, social services. He wasn't starting rich. He was starting ready. His phone buzzed. It was a message. Dr. Vasquez. I wanted you to have my direct number. Thank you again. See you Monday. DeShawn typed back slowly. Thank you for believing in me. I won't waste it. 3 dots appeared. I know you won't. That's why this matters. He set the phone down, looked around the apartment. Same walls, same worn couch, same air mattress. But something had shifted. For the first time in years, tomorrow didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a chance. And that was enough. Monday morning didn't feel real. DeShawn stood in front of the bathroom mirror at 6:30 a.m., tugging at a navy blue tie he'd bought at Ross. It wasn't perfect, but it was clean, new, respectable. Caleb sat on the closed toilet lid, swinging his legs. His light-up shoes blinked every time his heels hit the porcelain. "You look like a boss, Daddy." DeShawn smiled. "I'm not a boss, buddy." Caleb frowned, like that answer didn't make sense. "You help people now. That's what bosses do." DeShawn didn't argue. He walked Caleb into school himself that morning. No rushing, no checking the clock every 30 seconds. He knelt to hug him goodbye and felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Stability. At Jackson Memorial, his new badge felt heavier than the old one. Different color, different title. DeShawn Rivers, Community Liaison Director. Maria at the security desk covered her mouth when she saw him. "Look at you. I knew it. I knew something good was coming." His office was small, second floor, one window, one desk, but it was real. There was a nameplate. He sat down and didn't touch anything for a moment. Just breathed. A knock. "Come in." Dr. Vasquez stepped inside with 2 coffees. She handed one to him. "Figured you might need this," she said. "First days are rough." "That obvious?" DeShawn asked. "You're sitting like someone waiting to be told this was a mistake." He laughed quietly. "Feels like that." She took the chair across from him. "You don't need to know everything today, or this week. You just need to care enough to keep learning." He nodded, then hesitated. "What if the team doesn't respect me?" "They won't at first," she said honestly. "Some will, some won't. Respect comes after consistency." She slid a folder onto his desk. "This is your first case. Construction worker, fall injury, no insurance, 3 kids." DeShawn felt it hit close to home. "They don't need a miracle," Dr. Vasquez continued. "They need someone who won't let them get lost in the system." "I won't," he said. "I know." She stood. "Meeting in 20 minutes. After she left, DeShawn opened his desk drawer. Inside, Caleb's drawing. Happy house. He set it on the corner of the desk where he could see it. Then he picked up the phone. Workers' comp, translator services, food assistance. When he walked into conference room A, he already had names written down. 6 people looked up, some curious, some guarded. Dr. Vasquez gestured to him. "This is DeShawn Rivers. He's leading our community liaison program." DeShawn cleared his throat. "I won't pretend I know everything," he said. "I don't. But I know what it feels like to sit in a hospital scared not just about health, but about money, housing, and what happens next." A few heads nodded. "If we do this right," he continued, "people won't leave here feeling abandoned." Silence. Then a woman near the end smiled and stood. "Linda Castillo, Social Services," she said. "Welcome. Let's get to work." DeShawn exhaled. For the first time, he wasn't trying to survive the room. He belonged in it. 3 months later, DeShawn stood near the front desk at Jackson Memorial, watching the evening shift take over. Scrubs replaced coats, clipboards changed hands, security guards checked their radios before heading out. He used to be one of them. Midnight to 8. Coffee burned too hot, feet aching before the shift was half over. Now it was 5:15 p.m., and he was leaving on time every day. He adjusted the strap of his laptop bag and checked the clock out of habit. Caleb would be done with aftercare in 40 minutes. "Mr. Rivers?" He turned. The kid couldn't have been more than 19. Worn jeans, faded Dolphins jersey, hands shoved deep into his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them. "Yeah," DeShawn said. "What's up?" "My girlfriend just had our baby," the kid said. His voice cracked on baby. They're asking about insurance, and I don't have any. And they said, the bill's already, I don't know, a lot. DeShawn saw it instantly. That look, the one where your brain stops working because fear takes over. What's your name? DeShawn asked. Paul. Paul Clark. Okay, Paul. DeShawn kept his voice steady. First, congratulations. That part matters. Marcus swallowed. She's perfect. 7 pounds. Good, DeShawn said. Now take a breath. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to help you. Not all at once, step by step. Go be with your girlfriend and your daughter. Meet me here tomorrow at 10. Paul blinked. That's it? That's it, DeShawn said. You're not doing this alone. Marcus shook his hand like it meant something, like it mattered. It did. When he walked away, DeShawn leaned back against the counter for a second. 59 families. That's what the spreadsheet said now. But the spreadsheet didn't show faces, or hands shaking, or people crying in relief instead of fear. His phone buzzed. School reminder, parent-teacher conference Thursday, 3 p.m. DeShawn typed back without thinking. I'll be there. 3 months ago, that would have required 3 favors and a lie. Now it was just scheduled. Up on pediatrics, Patricia Williams waved him over. Single mom, she said quietly. 3 kids. Asthma meds she can't afford. She's talking about leaving. DeShawn nodded. I got it. He crouched in front of the woman, kept his voice low, explained the process, didn't promise miracles. 2 hours later, she left with medication, follow-ups, and a zero balance. She cried anyway. At 5:45, DeShawn clocked out. Outside, the sky was streaked orange and pink. Miami settling into evening. Caleb was waiting by the fence when DeShawn pulled up. Daddy! Hey, champ. I got 100 on my spelling test. DeShawn grinned. We celebrating? Polo Tropical? You read my mind. They ate chicken and plantains at a corner table. Caleb talked. DeShawn listened. Nothing special. Everything important. Later, after Caleb fell asleep, DeShawn sat at the same small table he'd always had. Same wobble, same chair. Different feeling. He updated the files. Paul Clark. Baby Mia. Follow-up scheduled. His phone buzzed. Board wants you to present next week. Ready? DeShawn smiled. Yeah, he typed. I'm ready. He looked around the apartment. Still small. Still imperfect. But the fridge was full. The lights were on. And tomorrow wasn't something to fear anymore. He closed the laptop. This wasn't luck. This was what happened when someone stopped long enough to help. And when someone else decided to do the same, full circle. 6 months after that night in the parking garage, DeShawn stood in front of the hospital board of directors, hands steady on the podium, PowerPoint presentation glowing behind him. 12 faces looked back at him. Rich faces. Powerful faces. The kind of people who made decisions that affected thousands of lives with a single vote. Richard Pemberton sat at the center. Dr. Vasquez sat to his right, expression neutral but eyes warm. Good afternoon, DeShawn said. 6 months ago, I was a security guard working 2 jobs to keep my son housed and fed. Today, I'm here to tell you about the 59 families who are housed and fed because this hospital decided compassion was worth investing in. He clicked to the first slide. Numbers, charts, data. The Community Liaison Program has served 59 families in 6 months. We've connected 42 with emergency housing resources, 23 with food assistance, 15 with legal aid for workers' compensation, 8 with job placement services. We've prevented an estimated $230,000 in unpaid medical bills through early intervention and resource connection. Click. Next slide. A photo of a family, the construction worker from his first day, standing with his wife and 3 kids, smiling. This is Miguel Santos. Fell from scaffolding, broke his leg. No insurance. 3 kids. We connected him with workers' comp, negotiated his hospital bill down to a manageable payment plan, and got his family enrolled in SNAP benefits while he recovered. He's back to work now, full-time, His kids aren't going hungry, and he tells everyone he knows that Jackson Memorial saved his family. Click. Another photo. The young mother with 3 kids. This is Jennifer Williams. Single mother, 3 kids, youngest with severe asthma. She was about to leave against medical advice because she was terrified of the bill. We enrolled her in our prescription assistance program, connected her with a community health clinic, and created a payment plan. Her son hasn't been to the ER in 4 months. That's 4 prevented emergency visits, 4 chances for his health to stabilize. DeShawn looked up from his notes, made eye contact with each board member. Here's what I've learned in 6 months. People don't want charity. They want dignity. They want someone to see them as human beings instead of problems to be managed. They want to know that when they're at their lowest, the institutions that claim to care about health actually care about them. He clicked to the final slide. Just text, what happens next? We're at capacity, DeShawn said. I have a wait list of 37 families right now, 37 people who need help that I don't have the resources to provide. We need to expand. 2 more staff members, increased emergency assistance budget, partnerships with more community organizations. He paused. Or we can stay where we are, help who we can, turn away the rest. The room was silent. Pemberton leaned forward. What's your budget request, Mr. Rivers? $180,000 annually. 2 additional staff at $45,000 each. $90,000 for emergency assistance fund and operational costs. That's not a small ask, one of the board members said. A woman DeShawn didn't know, diamonds at her throat. No, ma'am, it's not, DeShawn agreed. But consider what we save. Every family we connect with resources early is a family that doesn't end up in crisis later, doesn't default on massive medical bills, doesn't end up in the ER repeatedly because they can't afford preventive care. We're not spending money, we're investing it. Dr. Vasquez spoke for the first time. I've reviewed DeShawn's outcomes data. The return on investment is significant. But more than that, the community perception of this hospital has shifted. We've had 3 major donors specifically cite the community liaison program as the reason they're increasing their giving. Pemberton looked at his fellow board members. Some nodded, some looked uncertain. We'll take it under advisement, Pemberton said. You'll have our decision within 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Rivers. Excellent presentation. DeShawn gathered his laptop, left the boardroom. In the hallway, Dr. Vasquez caught up with him. You did well in there, she said. Think they'll approve it? I think you gave them every reason to. The rest is politics and budgets. We'll see. She smiled. Regardless of what they decide, I want you to know you've changed this place. The culture is different. Staff treat people differently. That doesn't show up in budget reports, but it matters. Thank you, DeShawn said, for all of this, for seeing me when you could have just walked away from that garage and never looked back. You saw me first, Dr. Vasquez reminded him. I just returned the favor. 2 weeks later, DeShawn got the call. Budget approved. Full amount. 2 new hires authorized. Program expansion greenlit. He sat in his office, staring at the email, and let himself feel it. Really feel it. Joy, pride, relief, hope. He called Caleb's school, asked them to give him a message. Daddy has big news. Can't wait to tell you. That afternoon, he picked Caleb up and took him to their favorite spot, Bayfront Park, overlooking Biscayne Bay. They sat on a bench, eating ice cream, watching boats drift past. Remember when we used to talk about our someday house? DeShawn asked. Caleb nodded. Vanilla ice cream on his chin. With the big windows in the yard! What if I told you we could start looking at real houses? Not someday, soon. Caleb's eyes went wide. Really? Really, we're gonna need more space anyway. You're getting bigger. You need your own room. My own room? Caleb's voice went up an octave. With my own closet and everything? Everything. Caleb threw his arms around DeShawn's neck, ice cream cone forgotten. You're the best dad in the whole world. DeShawn held his son tight, eyes closed against the late afternoon sun. I'm just trying, buddy. just trying to give you what you deserve. That night, after Caleb was asleep, DeShawn stood by the window of their small apartment. He could see the lights of downtown Miami glittering against the dark sky. Somewhere out there, 59 families were sleeping a little easier because someone had helped them. Somewhere out there, 37 more were waiting for that same chance. And starting Monday, DeShawn would have the resources to help them. He thought about the woman in the parking garage, about the choice that should have cost him everything, about his mother's note that he still kept in his wallet. Someone helped me once. Now it's your turn to help someone else. The cycle continued. DeShawn pulled out his phone, opened a new note, and started typing to whoever finds this someday. If you're reading this, you're probably in a hard place. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're counting change and knowing it's not enough. Maybe you're wondering if anyone sees you. I see you. Someone helped me once when I had nothing. That act of kindness changed my entire life. Not just because of the money, but because it reminded me that I mattered, that I was worth helping. You matter too. If you need help, ask for it. If you can help someone else, do it. The world doesn't change with grand gestures. It changes with small acts of courage. With people who choose compassion when it costs them something. Be that person when you can. And when you can't, know that somewhere, someone is fighting to be that person for you. DeShawn Rivers. He saved the note, printed it, tucked it into his wallet next to his mother's. One day, when the moment was right, he'd give it to someone who needed it, just like someone had done for him. Outside his window, Miami slept. Inside that small apartment, a man who'd been invisible for so long finally understood what it meant to be seen. And to see others in return, that was the real gift. Not the job, not the money, not even the house they'd start looking for next month. It was the knowledge that kindness, even when it costs you everything, is never wasted. Sometimes it just takes a while to come back around. But when it does, it changes everything. If you're still here, this story was for you. Subscribe to Kindness Spoke TV, and let's keep telling stories that remind people who they can be.